it's too bad you're not a good enough hunter to shoot whatever. And it's like, well, let me break it down to you. Geese come in and I shoot 3 geese, and
that sounds cool. You're laying on the ground.
That's it though. 3 geese. That was the hunt was done, and they were like, "Oh, you limit it out," and I was, "No, this sucks." I'm like, "You only get to shoot 3." Sum things up. If you want to support an outdoor company, Outdoorsman makes one hell of a system. Those sheep are not too difficult to kill, and it boils down to Benjamins. I will never be able. Well, I can't say never. I could win the lottery.
You've never missed before, right? I mean, it's just never happened.
I haven't missed today.
Mountain Too High guy, the Prefontaine, he's good for scouting. So
having all that elk meat in the freezer is more of a trophy for me than the antlers on the wall. I can't eat the antlers, you know.
Yeah. Not to be weird, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages that all men should read to help your marriage, or if you just want to pick up chicks.
Hey, can I borrow some toilet paper? Actually, just give me your bag of game bags because you obviously aren't going to use them.
After my divorce, I felt like I was this tall, read the book. Immediately I learned it helps with dating. It is a good book.
I've read the book too.
It's good for picking up chicks.
Editing stuff on your computer at home takes a toll on...
I told you got to sleep faster.
Yeah, I told you.
What I do.
Oh, you just know when you see the elk, that's the one I want to shoot. Or, nah, that one I don't really want to shoot.
In my case, that's all of them. I passed a few up, but that was in the first 5 minutes of the hunt.
Hello, all right. You're listening to the Gritty Bowman, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Hey, this is Corey Jacobson, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
We born and raised outdoors, and you've been listening to The Gritty Bowman.
There you go.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jordan.
And you're watching
The Gritty Bowman.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the Gritty Bowman Podcast. I'm here with Aaron Snyder, Kafaru International, in his office, American flag behind him. We're setting up the scene, Aaron, for those listening. So today, we're going to talk about, Aaron's going to talk about tripods and glassing and what?
Optic systems. I know, right? It's,
optic systems? Is that what we're going to call it?
I've been keeping a good inventory of, because I'm not very organized at all. So I've been trying to make a note beside my work computer, my home. When I get a question, I'll answer it, but I'll notate the question, assuming there's probably other people with the same questions that may not be asking. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I get asked is tripods, optics, stuff like that, what to get, right? Because there's so many options. And so I brought some of mine in that I prefer, some of the systems that I use. So we'll talk about not really specifically brands of optics, but powers. What's a good power to get, you know, and spotters the same way. A little bit about digiscoping and a little bit of techniques, because it's going to be some 15 power optics are better for some situations than others. Point in case, the recent trip to the Tiburon, John just killed us with 15s. It was depressing. I was ready to run face first into a cactus to claim injury, so he couldn't keep finding more sheep than I was.
Well, sweet, because this is good stuff. I want to know all the same stuff. I've got I used my tripod for filming, and then we'll swap it out and glass with it. But my tripods are a little heavy. I'd like to get the scoop on what you're using. And any other hunts going on?
I'm going back down to Tiburon and the mainland, I think, with clay for desert. I'm a poor white man that can't afford those, so I'm the toady that follows very wealthy guys around with a camera and optics. And
I found that's a really good way to sheep hunt is to go with someone else
well,
that has money.
I think it's 85 to 95,000. I'll say again, dollars for a Tiburon tag. And I could afford that if I sold everything I had, maybe.
How cool is that though that you get to do that?
Well, I
That is-
get
that is neat, man. I would love to go.
not to change it to a hater podcast, but it's amazing. I got a couple, well, 4 pretty funny messages about, that it's too bad you're not a good enough hunter to shoot whatever. And it's like, well, let me break it down to you. Those sheep are not too difficult to kill. And it boils down to Benjamins. I will never be able, well, I can't say never. I could win the lottery.
The raffle or
Yeah, but I mean, those hunts, you're not hunting for a animal, you're hunting for the animal. So you're not hunting for a sheep. There's lots of a sheeps down there. They're all over. You're hunting the sheep, the toad of Tiburon, right? That's what we were looking for. We passed up I don't know how many. But as far as killing it, not an overly difficult task. Okay? I mean, it's
well, and I think that's where
you're not. I mean, you're not finding the cure for cancer down there, right? The sheep, the island is uninhabited by man. Okay, so you only give out 10 tags a year. I mean, kids can kill those sheep. All right, it's not that big of a deal. So for those of you that sent me messages, I will wrestle a sheep down on. No, I'm just kidding.
The hard part, really, and the reason why, one of the reasons I think you're looking for that one animal that's spectacular above the rest is because if you didn't, your hunt would be over in the first hour.
It would have been over the second day. We were on 3 sheep between 175 and 182 the second day. Watched them all day, and I'm pretty good at judging sheep. So generally, Clay and I will sit there. We'll write down the scores. We'll look at them. Clay's better than I am at it, but I'll get you within a couple inches, and that's a couple inches either way. There's a 4-inch variance there.
So but it's not really like my uncle guides in Arizona, and one of the reasons is he grew up there. He loves hunting there. There's giant animals there, and he wants to hunt them. But you can only draw a tag every, I don't know, 5-10 years. So you start guiding or going with other people, and you get to hunt each year, even though you're not the guy with pulling the trigger. So it's got to be, if you're in it for the adventure, you don't have to be the guy that pulls the trigger, right? I mean, you still have that adventure. You're still, going without water and hating life. I mean, you can do that, just like the guy with the gun.
Yeah, and in fact, you generally probably are carrying some of his crap too, because he is a millionaire and you are not, and that's how life works in America. So, but Ben, Ben is we've talked about before. He's a younger guy. He's a friend. He's not a millionaire, but he does okay financially. This was a big ticket item for Ben. He did great on the hunt. He was Ben and I like to eat, and I guess the Seri Indians don't eat much, because when we backpacked in, there wasn't. It was bad, dude. And Ben ate day 1, 2, and 3 on day 1. And so luckily John is a stick figure, because John was giving me and Ben. Now I was rationing my food out, but when John offered up food, I'm like, yeah, I'll eat that. Because I woke up and I had a granola bar at 6, and then I had a tortilla at like 11. That's not enough for me.
No way.
And Ben is a very strong dude, but he crashes fast. He runs out of food. It's life or death. It's a big deal. He might eat your leg. So he's double fisting peanut butter sandwich. And that was the other thing too. I know I told the cook, I don't like mayo and I don't like ham. Just make me peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was a ding dong and didn't look at my food. I had 1 peanut butter and jelly sandwich and all mayo and ham sandwiches.
There seemed to be like a miscommunication there, like a language barrier.
Classic case of misremembering. Yeah, it was bad. So anyway, before we see too many.
So wait. I was asking you earlier. Do you duck hunt, Aaron? Do you like do any like other than big game? Do you like? Do you get into like the waterfowl thing or the upland?
So I'll repeat the story I told earlier. I went. They gave me a Benelli Super. It was like the M12 I had in the military. Anyway, we set up thousands of decoys.
Is that
right
like
there.
an amazing shotgun or something?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It shoots 3 geese really well because that's what happened. I set all these decoys up. We got up at the butt crack of dawn. Right, it's like 2:30, and I'm in I don't know, this a blind where I step on the pedal and the door flings open. And anyway, geese come in and I shoot 3 geese, and
That sounds cool. You're laying on the
that was
ground.
it though. 3 geese. That was the hunt was done, and they were like, "Oh, you limit it out," and I was, "No, this sucks." I'm like, "You only get to shoot 3," and or whatever it was.
How
And
long
so,
did it take to set up?
I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, and you had to drive out there, and I was like, "This is just not my thing," like it just. And I mean, I went duck hunting a couple times, and we were puddle jumping because I can't call ducks, right? I mean, hey, duck, that's about as good as it gets. So we were puddle jumping and jump them up, and like spot and stock duck hunting.
Yeah. That's sort of the more of the redneck way to me. Like ambush hunting is like the pro way. Like you throw out decoys and rednecks run from water hole to water hole. That's just my perception. I could be wrong.
That's what I did, and I went goose hunting once with my bow, but the guy I was with could call, and he'd call them onto the river that was frozen. They'd fall asleep or land, and then I would shoot them. That was cool. But there's also ethics to duck hunting, right? I guess ducks have souls, and so or geese, and I think you're not supposed to shoot them when they're on the water. You got to shoot them when they're on the wing.
That's right, Aaron. That's
so
right.
like the first time I went bowling,
you
I
got to
learned
give him a fighting chance.
Yeah, well, there's bowling etiquette.
Yeah.
You can't walk away when the guy's getting ready to throw the ball down the aisle.
Really?
I didn't know that. Well, you can't shoot a duck when it hits the water because I believe I made that mistake and found out that you're not supposed to shoot ducks once they land. I didn't know. I thought we're trying to kill it.
Dude, I'm with you. Like I remember going out and and the ducks were like they even had kind of put out their landing gear and were about to drop.
Yeah.
And apparently they need to be coming in a little faster than that, or it's sort of like cheating. But I need them to slow down like that. I need that like easy shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm. I went out turkey hunting with my friend Will Askew of Hunting Graphics, and he. I've never been turkey hunting. I've seen it on TV, right? It's everywhere. So we go out, we get out there, and I'm like, they're in that tree over there roosting, and you can hear them calling up in that tree, and I'm like, well, let's go over there and shoot them.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can't shoot them when they're roosting in the tree. I'm like, why not? I mean, sneak up on them and shoot them right out of the tree. And he's like, apparently that's not ethical either. There's something about that being not sporting or something.
Well, and if you're brought up turkey hunting, you know that. But if you don't know and you're used to stalking deer in their beds, you're like, perfect. It's in the tree. It's not moving. But, I mean, and the way, before we see too many squirrels, the way life works in the hunting industry and how things are perceived, after we did the long distance podcast, ethical distance, I had a couple guys I know tell me I was wrong for shooting an animal at 80 yards. And I'm like, well, dude, I know damn good and well you bait bears and deer. And I'm like, I know you shoot turkeys over corn in North Dakota. I'm like, so it's okay to trick them to come in, but forbid you shoot them out there eating wild grass at 80. I was like, so, I mean, everybody's got their own issue.
They do. Well, I'll never forget, though, turning to Will and the guys and being like, let's shoot them out of that tree, and them looking at me like I had just slapped them, like I had just abused a child or something. But yeah, I think when you grow up with it and you just know it, and there are certain ethics. Same with fly fishing is like that quite a bit. There's certain things you do and you don't do. So anyway, let's get into this podcast. Okay, so Aaron, tell us about tripods and optic systems.
Okay. Well, on tripods, you've got pretty much two choices. You've got aluminum or carbon. The advantages of carbon, generally, it's a little bit lighter weight. Advantage is aluminum, it's going to be more durable, generally. Now, we'll end up having a 19-hour podcast. We talk about all the options. So most of what I'm going to talk about is the system I've kind of ended up with after trying multiple. Now, the thing you'll need to worry about with carbon is it can break easier than aluminum. Aluminum doesn't really break. So as far as for a carbon tripod that is affordable, that would be a Slick. That's the name of the company, is Slick. They make like a 613, a 623. I don't know. There's a bunch of different options. The carbon is cheaper that they use, and it's not wrapped as many times as a higher end like a Gitzo tripod, but they'll get the job done. They're about $230 for a Slick. Tripods aren't cheap. Reasons why I'm not going to talk about tripods around $100 is they all kind of suck. So you're going to get what you kind of pay for. They're not horrible. They're just not great. And any $100 tripod is going to be pretty equal across the board in the things it offers. So Slick is a great option for around $200 to $250 for the tripod, not the head. And they are carbon. There's not really there's a lot of options for aluminums in that price range. Just do your homework. I'm not going to go into all of them. Once you're done looking at carbon and aluminum tripods, the length you need, all those things come into play. You might want to stand up in glass. You'll need a taller tripod. You want to stay around 2 pounds in weight of the actual tripod, not the tripod and head. Now, you can go really lightweight. You're just going to suffer. You're going to lose some functionality if you go too lightweight. And you can, but use 1 pound 14 ounces to 2 pounds 4 ounces roughly for a backpacking tripod without the head. Now, when you go to the heads, you have multiple different options. You have ball heads, pan heads, things like that. I would just say don't use a ball head for glassing. They suck. I've been trying to use one so I could use it for photography and glassing. Don't use a ball head for glassing.
Bad idea, Aaron. Dumb idea.
It was horrible. So there's a few different very solid tripod heads. There's a few. There's not very many great options for backpacking for tripod heads. The best tripod head that I have found is from the Outdoorsman. This is their, I think it's called their micro pan head. And get it in the white backdrop there.
Got it.
The way this works, you twist this lefty-loosey. That's your tilt. You twist this lever here. That's your pan. It's super simple. So when you go to grid, you turn this sideways. I don't want it to tilt, right? Because I want to stay on the same level all the way across. Lock that in place. It's not going to move up and down. And I can glass without missing anything all the way across. Loosen this, bump it up to the next level.
Yep.
All the way across.
And you can grid search the the hill. Make sure you didn't miss any spots.
We'll
that's
go over
the problem that's a problem with a ball head.
I just fly all over the place. Hopefully.
Not only that, once you have an animal spotted with the ball head, then you unscrew it, and then it's lost, and you're like, "Where was it again?" And
at least with this, if you loosen one or the other, you at least know you're on one, vertical or horizontal. So this is the micro pan head from the Outdoorsman. The cool thing about Outdoorsman products, I will say, and I've used those. I used them for a couple years, and I used Gitzos for a couple years. I'm doing a review on Rock Slide, and it's going to take it took about 4 years to get it all done. So I would get guys that would call me, and I would give them advice, but you don't use that one anymore. Well, when you're trying to do a review for 4 years, if I only reviewed one, that'd be one thorough review, let me tell you. So I used one. The other head that is very good is also from the Outdoorsman. This is just their standard tilt pan head. It's got 2 levers. I'll loosen them both. The one on this side is for tilt. The one on this side for pan. Okay. Pretty simple. This is 11 ounces. The the standard from Outdoorsman, this head. I think this one, don't quote me on these numbers, is 7 ounces.
Wow.
That is an extremely lightweight system. So, like I said, I'd love to talk about tilt and pan heads and ball heads for 4 hours. I highly suggest to get an Outdoorsman. Now, there's a Gitzo, which I can't remember the name of, that I've been using. That's a pretty solid system, too. It does the tilt and pan all at one time on a knob. It works very well. It's not as silky smooth as an Outdoorsman. The thing with the Outdoorsman that's nice is you're supporting hunters. I guarantee Gitzo, Manfrotto, you're not supporting hunters when you buy from them. And I can tell you firsthand from having meetings with those people at the SHOT Show, they really don't care about, like, you call the Outdoorsman, you tell him a hunting story. Cody, great guy. He's going to get all pumped up. He's going to start talking about coos deer. You go, nobody speaks English at the Gitzo booth. I can tell you that right now. Not very much. And so you start talking about hunting, they're going to kick you out of the booth. They don't know. They don't care. Outdoorsmen are great people. This is the compact medium from Outdoorsman. It's not really tall. I think it's 2 pounds, 3 ounces.
Okay.
It's not, you can't stand up and use it. It's extremely short. So
Yeah.
it fits great.
That looks tiny, dude.
Oh, it's money. I've only been using this for a little while. So I can't talk about the test of time,
So
but
So can I put my giant 200 millimeter lens on there?
yeah, it'll hold it. And I'll go into that in a minute. We can't see too many squirrels. This is our second take on this.
All this stuff that you're talking about so far, all I need to know is what you recommend.
Okay, this is what I recommend for the Outdoorsman compact medium for backpack hunting.
And what's the head called?
This is their micro head, and either this head or their standard head
And,
are
and what's the name of that tripod?
compact medium.
Compact medium. Now,
And
how
I'll hold
much?
this up if you need their number.
1-800. Okay, so tell me.
1-800 eyeglass a lot of up. No, just kidding. Sorry, Katie.
Okay,
So-
so wait. How much does that thing weigh?
I think it's total 2 pounds 9 ounces, 2 pounds 11 ounces for everything.
And how much does it cost?
A lot, $800 for everything. So I will say now,
$800, Aaron?
my Gitzo tripod that I did not get a deal on, the tripod was $800, the head was $369. So it's expensive. Now, you think about it,
Yep.
you probably are only going to shoot an animal one time. You are behind this every day. So don't look at it as it's a 3-legged goat holding up my optics. Think of it as you are behind this every day. And now obviously buy the best you can afford. We're not all millionaires. But if you're like, oh, I want to get a new bow, or I'll keep the bow I have and I'll spend that money on a tripod, use the noggin, get a tripod, because the bow is still going to shoot very well.
Well,
The tripod, you probably have sucks.
Well, true. The truth is that unless you're really into photography or filmmaking or digiscoping
Or glassing in general.
It's hard to stomach the idea of spending that much on a tripod.
Right. But if you're not a glassing guy, you're probably just going to listen to this podcast and laugh at us and not pay attention to anything. But if you're into glassing, you'll probably pay attention.
Well, and my experience has been now that the tripod is the difference between, hours and hours of enjoyment behind your glass, or for filmmaking, photography, all of it is just the tripod. That's why I carry that giant Manfrotto that weighs 1,000 pounds and is giant, is because it's sturdy, solid. The pan head is smooth, and I can film really well with it. But that thing is not for backpacking, man.
No. Well, the thing is, and we'll go over to the optics portion in a minute. I'm going to extend this out and show you why Outdoorsman's system is pretty cool. So let me lengthen these out. And I'm going to go over this other one real quick.
And
This
I'll
is
say
just-
that, like, my Manfrotto, I think is like $500 or something for carbon fiber, and then the head was like another $300.
Yeah.
So we're talking similar price range here.
Right. Now,
but yeah, go ahead.
these tripods are like 369 to 469. It's the head that is a little more expensive than some other options. Gitzo, Really Right Stuff, all those guys there, every bit or more expensive than Outdoorsman.
So, what if you have a bunch of heads? Will they fit on the Outdoorsman
Yeah, you
tripods?
just unscrew this, throw it on there, and you can put these heads on other tripods. For when I was first testing stuff out, I just couldn't, frankly, afford everything. I ran this on a Gitzo tripod on a 1542, I think. This is their large, the Outdoorsman's large, so I can stand up with this one. It's a little heavier. It's still not too bad. And then I have their standard pan head on this one. Now, before I jump into this system, let me backtrack. With the Gitzo tripod I was using, it's about the same weight, but it goes taller. So I can stand up if I wanted to in glass. Now, I don't ever stand up in glass, so it's kind of a moot point. The Gitzo, its inherent weakness is in cold weather. It's a twist lock. There's kind of a plastic moon in there, and it will break, guaranteed in cold weather. When you twist, if you get it locked up or twist too tight, it gets brittle, it'll break. Then your tripod's kind of screwed. Now, I use the Gitzo a ton. I have no issues with them at all. They're a great tripod. The big thing is you're getting the same quality with a more durable system with the Outdoorsman. But when I say system, and obviously they're hunters, you're also getting a pretty amazing glassing system as a whole. And I'm going to pull out my binoculars and show you why. So right now I have in my bino harness, I have a little post right now. This post is made by the Outdoorsman's. That slaps on there. Okay. So now I'm going to take my binoculars out of my chest harness. I'll unclip them. And Outdoorsman's makes multiple types of systems for this, for glassing. They have some that has a ring that clamps around the objective. So now, because I glass off a tripod a bunch, I plug that in.
And you're there.
Bam. So I'm looking at you guys through the computer. You look good. Okay, so now I found a giant animal, okay? I lock this in place. I pop this off. I've got the same block on my spotter. Now I can look at it through my spotting scope. Same system. So it's pretty user-friendly, and they make all kinds of parts, pieces. They make a pistol grip. So the difference you'll see with Outdoorsman is it's built by hunters. When you go to a Mike's camera, whatever, you're not going to understand when you're like, man, I'm rocking 15s. I need something beefy that can also hold a 95, and I Digiscope. I'm trying to count annuli on Tiburon Island. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? So with Outdoorsman's, they're all hunters, so they know what you're talking about. If I was going, go ahead.
I think it's a huge deal to make it all interchangeable, because I throw my binoculars on there, and then I throw my tripod on there, and then I throw my video camera on there. I throw my DSLR on there. All of them need to just have a quick adapt plate that they all can accept.
Well, and in this tripod, if I've got boulders everywhere, you've got a little flick here. So I can go boulder over here, make this one short. This is how I was doing it. That one's basically, whoops, didn't lock it in. This one here is going to be right in my crotch, basically.
Yep.
But I can get right up on my optics.
That's kind of that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I have a couple tripods that do that too, but they weigh a ton.
Yeah, this one.
So tell me, Aaron, how tall does that get?
I cannot remember. I think 40 some inches.
So
basically, at any sitting height, you're fine.
Okay, so if I had it, so 40 inches about chest high then?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I tell you what, let's do a visual.
Yeah, stand
And I
up.
have a tape measure here. I can answer you.
Because it looks like it's actually taller than that to me. Once you raise the middle section. 'Cause you still
And you
got,
can get an extension in the middle to go even taller.
just gets a little shaky probably.
Bam! Look at that.
Wow, Aaron. Sophisticated.
So 32 inches to the top without it extended.
Okay.
To the top meaning to the top of the post. And I'm going backwards. 40 inches.
So stand up. Okay.
So belly button height. So we go into a little more depth. This is going to be visual for some people. Let's say I'm digiscoping. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this one is really tall. This is the one, I packed this one around actually quite a bit. This is their large because it's really not that heavy. So unless I'm just going crazy ultralight.
So do they happen to have what they call a large compact? Because the other one's a medium compact.
No, but they have a medium, just a standard.
Just a standard medium.
Yep. Now this is a little high. I'm going to drop her down just a hair. So just as I'm going over my system, let's say I'm wanting to digiscope and got that locked in. This is something pretty cool as well. So I've got, this is a Swarovski tripod or a spotting scope.
Yep.
Now,
Digiscope adapter on it.
yep, I've got a Digiscope adapter. So what I'm going to do is take, and I should have the TLS APO adapter. This actually mounts right onto my camera. So I pull off my lens. I mount this onto my camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I take that cap off. Whoa. And I gotta lock her in place. And I lock it in place and we're good. So it's a pretty cool system.
Yeah.
So now, ideally, I'm using Swarovski glass with a 43 megapixel camera with 60 power. Pretty cool. So now I'm done. I want to get even better photos. I take this off, set her over here. I use the same block from before. And I've got, which this isn't my super zoom lens. Now I got that on there.
Yeah.
A very, very, very enticing system. Now,
Which head do you like better?
and that's a tough one. For binoculars, definitely that micro. That thing's the bomb. I would say for everything, the micro will hold that system completely. The micro head. And I'm going to pop this back up just to show everybody if you're watching. The only thing you got to worry about with the micro, because this is way overkill for this head, even though the head can take it, is you need to be very mindful when you're locking this in. Okay? Because if you don't have that locked in, you got to manually hold it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But I'll do like the worst case position. It holds it. Right? No issue there whatsoever. But it is heavy, so you do have to keep a hold of your system. Your
Pretty much right now, with the exception of the Manfrotto, whenever I use my Vanguard that I bought off Camel Fire, whenever I use anything lightweight that we have some aluminum ones. Basically, Aaron, we're so cheap that everything except for that heavy giant Manfrotto that we carry requires us to hold on to it so it doesn't fall off. The whole time we have to be careful with that sort of thing. And this looks like it's even steadier than what we use, and much lighter and smaller too.
Now on Tiburon, and I'll go over the optics because we're going to talk about different powers here in a second. On Tiburon, we filmed everything through that APO adapter, digiscoping it.
Mm-hmm.
We filmed that. We had a Sony A7S camera. I had on my system, I was running a super zoom, a big lens. So I had my lens hooked to this, not my body, but my lens. It was slick because I went from running 10s to an 80, bounced that off because we had a 95 there too. We had other optics there, and then popped my camera on this. And then I'm also able to get a super steady shot of Ben behind a gun, capture the whole scene. And then, okay, Ben sucks and he misses it. I just throw my binoculars back on. We keep blasting for more sheep without any, taking a quarter, unscrewing plates, anything like that. So this is pretty damn cool. So sum things up. If you want to support an outdoor company, Outdoorsman makes one hell of a system. The only penalty, because money-wise, even though it's expensive, for the quality you're getting, it's actually cheaper than if you bought a Gitzo, for example. Gitzo,
I'll tell you,
$90.
we ended up duct taping our last carbon fiber tripod together during our hunt, and it made for some sketchy film and some sketchy glassing. And now we're going to spend the same money again to buy another tripod.
Right. I mean, if you're into glassing, you probably already have heard of Outdoorsman's anyway, but the Outdoorsman's tripod is solid. If you're wanting a carbon one, a Gitzo is a good way to go. And I've ran a Gitzo a bunch in the last 2 years. A lot of my photos in the last 2 years, I got a Gitzo. Again, I'm doing a very lengthy review for this. So now that we've talked about go buy an Outdoorsman. If you're poor, buy a Slick. Then upgrade later to an Outdoorsman. If you want a carbon tripod, probably get a Gitzo. There's another company called Really Right Stuff that makes carbon tripods. I had one for about a week. I sent it back because the tripod alone was $1,000. Wasn't worth it to me for what I do. That and my kid one day will go through college, and I would like to pay for that. It was a very expensive tripod. So now you got your tripod figured out, hopefully. What optics do you want? People ask me what power to run, what power a spotter. There's multiple schools of thought with this. Some guys like Clay, Lancaster, Brian Martin, guys I know, they run 8s, and they'll run 8x32s or 8x42s. They're lightweight. They can glass up a ton of stuff with it, at least to see there's an animal there, and then they're going to grab their spotting scope. Now, the reason why they're probably carrying an 80, 85, or a 95 millimeter spotter. So that's where they start picking things apart. Growth rate, annual eye, length, everything like that. But they can see well enough with 8s to pick up an animal, and then they'll pick it apart with their spotting scope. Now, if you're not running a spotting scope, I've always ran 10 powers regardless. 10s are really good for just straight out everyday everything. So if you're not running to run a spotter ever or don't plan on it, I would go with 10 power binoculars, carrying them on your chest.
Do you really save that much weight going from an 8 power to a 10 power?
On an 832, you do. If you go down like an 8, oh yeah, it's pretty significant compared to like an 842. You save a little, and you save size as well. Now,
you don't have as much power, but you have a good field of view.
Yeah.
With an 8, is it enough though? Like some country just seems like an 8's just not enough.
If you have a spotter, it is, because the spotter will do your spotter's going to pick things apart. So if you,
so you're telling me basically, Aaron, that pretty much everything you can see with a 10, you can see with an 8.
Pretty close. Now, having said that, I run 10s. A lot of times, sometimes I won't bring my spotter. Mm-hmm. I also don't have the greatest vision in the world, and I've just gotten used to 10s. When people ask between 842 and 1042, I just say go with your gut, go with what feels right. Not going to be a huge difference. Where you run into a bigger difference is an 8x32 compared to a 10x42. An 8x32 for still hunting is a great optic. It's probably a better chest optic. You don't have a giant field of view, but it's decent. But if you're hunting the north woods of Idaho, you're not glassing a whole lot. With what I do, we pack in 15s and 80 and 10s. I mean, we pack in the house in a lot of areas. So that leads up to the other option. Do I just run 12s and not run a spotter at all and run 12s on a tripod? And I glass almost all my glassing I do when we're sitting. I glass off a tripod with my binoculars. It ups your glassing game 100-fold. Is do I run 12s? Like Colton this year, I had 12s, and like an idiot, I traded Colton my 12s for my 10, his 12s for his 10s for my 12s, which I shouldn't have done. But Colton's not going to buy a spotter, and I had one, and I was trying to cut weight, and I'm like, man, I really don't need 12s. I'll use 10s. There's a big difference between 10s and 12s glassing. 12s are a great option if you're in big country. Now, I will say John Pinch crushed us on Tiburon with 15s. And another mistake I made a month earlier, those were my 15s. And we traded because I was like, it was that time of year. I didn't want to carry them backpacking. It's my second set, too. Like a ding-dong, I traded them off twice. And I'm like, I don't want to carry these. They're just kind of a third wheel. You know, I got 10s and a spotter. Well, then we went to the mule deer hunts. Big country, didn't walk very far. Whole times I'm like, man, I wish I had my 15s. We got on Tiburon, and like to an embarrassing point, John was eating our lunch. And I've got good eyes. I mean, I pick up. I mean, he was crushing us. Like Clay kept looking at me like, sheep. And Clay's like, you hate to be that guy, right? Where's it at? Which rock? So like 100 yards to the right of okay, wait, where again? And so,
yeah,
like,
my uncle, who is a glassing fool, and he can glass. I mean, just like some kind of radar he's got, sixth sense. Uncle Kevin in Arizona at High Point, he uses 15s for so much because he's just learned that they're the way to go, especially in big country.
I've thought about just running 15s, and that's it.
And he's done that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, in big country, 15s. I mean, it's unbelievable. The field of view is the world. I mean, it's huge. The power, you can pick up anything. Now, about a mile out, is about the limit of 15s. You're still going to spot animals, but being able to decipher what they are. But backpack hunting with 15s, I don't think I'm going to talk myself into that one. I tried scouting with 15s and an 80 millimeter spotter. And while I did spot a lot of animals, I lost a lot of weight on the way in carrying that. So 15s, though, are a great option. I know a lot of mule deer hunters run like an 8x32 and a 15. They glass off a tripod with the 15s when they get in close. They go on the stock, they got their 8s. 8x32, they're real small. That's another great option. Now, if you're just a guy buying binoculars, I generally say get an 8x42. If you're going to be a guy with a pretty good budget, your best system is going to be 8s or 10s, probably 8s, 15s, and an 80 millimeter spotter. You don't bring them all every time, but there's going to be a time where you're going to crush guys with one or the other. For example, high wind, 10s and 15s, even on a tripod, they're rough. With 8s, you don't have as much power. You're not getting as much shake. Not that you want to be talking about glassing out of a helicopter, but we did that a lot in the territories. Clay was eating my lunch with 8s. He didn't have as much shake. I'm sitting, I couldn't see anything. So, I mean.
I don't hear the argument for 8s that often, Aaron. I mean, this is kind of new for me. I normally, most of what I read is 10x42 is the standard recommendation for Western hunters.
Yeah. And I would say that is pretty standard. But if you're packing an 80 millimeter spotter everywhere, you want to save a little weight.
Save the weight.
Yeah, get the 8s. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm completely contradicting what I say because I'll probably never use 8s myself. I'll just carry the 10s. But if you're trying to save some weight, saves a little bit of money, saves a little bit of size, the 8x42 80 millimeter combo is pretty hard to beat.
Okay, got it.
15s, I'm probably going to end up like a dummy buying another set, even though John has my last set. A little irritating. It's just unbelievable what they can glass. Now, the difference is, and we've covered most of this, and And you'll notice guys like Robbie Denning, David Long, my buddy Clay. If you're just a beginner glasser, that's not even a word, but I'm going to use it. Glasser. You go back out there and you've got 3 guys.
Yep.
And the first 2 guys, they're used to hunting the high country, right? And then the third guy, he's all over the board. He's glassing over here, he's glassing over there. And I do that initially at first when I'm glassing. And by no means am I a pro glasser, but for a guy with ADD, I'm one of the guys that'll sit there 14 hours. I'm going to find something. And I'll kind of glass around the high points. I'll grab my tins, put them on the tripod. I've got a water hole over here. I've got this over here. And then after a while, and Clay uses it all the time. He'll be like, man, I'm going to eat this hillside up. He is gridding it. Now, when I say grid, which it's amazing once you learn how to glass, if you watch someone that hasn't glassed a lot, they're not ever gridding. And gridding is when you are picking apart the mountain left to right, drop down, right to left, and you're picking it apart looking behind
systematically. So that you glass every part of the hill or the area.
When I'm doing that, I'm looking specifically shaded trees and rocks. You're looking at shade. Now, in the case of Tiburon, they were laying all over. They're used to the heat. But for mule deer specifically, you're going to pick those deer up. Like when we were in this last area for third season, we'd be watching deer for 15 minutes in one spot, have a 2-minute conversation, and they pulled a Houdini. Like, they gone. So then we're looking, and you'd find the nose sticking out 4 inches behind a rock. He had bedded behind a rock. Now, if I would have had 10s, I would have never picked that up. But with an 80 gridding, I'm only gridding 100 yards wide. The deer couldn't have gone that far. That's where I'll start. Boom, 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 picking out rocks. And literally, it was like a 170 buck Jay and I found. I had this much of its nose sticking out from behind a rock, and I found it. You'll find that a lot. So you want to make sure and learn, have the equipment like the heads I was talking about from Outdoorsman's to make your life easier, but be able and have the discipline to grid out a hillside. The other thing when you're gridding out, it's easy to, a lot of guys won't use a tripod. It's pretty hard to grid out when you're not on a tripod and be consistent. Using a tripod with binoculars to grid is very effective, and you'll be amazed how much more animals you'll find glassing off a tripod. A lot of times that's Greek. They don't think about using a tripod.
Honestly, I think glassing without a tripod, if you're going to sit down and actually comb a hillside, there's the tripod is more important than the power or what binocular or anything else.
Yep, for sure. And I mean, you'll catch me laying on my side, goofing off, glassing on an elbow and whatever. It gets uncomfortable glassing behind a tripod all the time. But when we go in and we're serious, like James's buddy, he's kind of weird. He didn't want me to mention his name or photos. And I'll just say his name's Drew. We call him 00 Drew because he was like, I don't want to be on Facebook, whatever. That dude is a very effective glasser. I've never seen, he stayed behind 15s for 5 hours at a time with maybe a couple-minute break here and there. And I mean, dude, but he was like, oh, there's deer, just over and over and over. And I didn't have my 15s with me. I had an 80. So I can grid with an 80 and be fairly effective. I was running a 25 by 50 wide eyepiece. And I was able to have a little bit bigger field of view with that wide and grid like he was with the 15s. I got a better chance of picking up something he might lose because of detail, because of the power, but his field of view is significantly bigger than mine. So those are some options. Now, as far as eyepieces go and spotting scopes, with a spotting scope, I've gotten to where I just carry an 80. Maybe at some point in time, I'll drop to a 65 to save some weight. But I generally run an 80, and I run a 25 by 50 eyepiece a lot, or a 20 by 60. The reason why I run the wide eyepiece, one is photography for digiscoping, but two is I glass behind my spotter a lot gridding, where I'll just skip the binoculars and go right to picking apart the mountainside with the spotter. With that, it's a 25 to 50 wide. With that 25 wide, I just got a bigger field of view for picking things apart. So I can't answer 65 or 80. I can say any guide you run in, not any guide, most guides are running an 80. They like the bigger glass. But if you're trying to save weight, a 65 will get you down no problem. Just make sure you don't drop a bunch of money into optics and then you don't learn how to glass. There is a science and a technique to it. John Pinch is very. I was ready to run face first into a cactus to claim injury. He was outglassing us so bad with those 15s. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
So, what do you run 10s?
I have 10 by 42. I have like Vortex Vipers. Anthony has some razors, and Ben has some old Bushnells. I think that are like they're like looking through Coke bottles. And but we throw those things up on. We have that Vanguard. It's a Vanguard carbon fiber tripod. It was super cheap. Twisty legs comes in. That's the one that broke, and we had to duct tape. But I run 10 by 42, and Anthony has. We use both the 65 and the 80 power spotting scope, and I don't know, or the objective. I don't know which one. We've used the smaller one for backpacking and the bigger one, for whenever we're not backpacking. But
Well, you'll get to find out firsthand if you come with me next year.
Mhm.
It is because it's such big country. When you're glassing from 2 miles out down to 200 yards, it's hard to go from an 80 or plus to a 65 if you're used to an 80. You look through it and you're like, where'd everything go? It's just a completely different look.
I when I was in Arizona, I used my uncle's 15s. That was my favorite way to glass by far. I mean, it was great. When I looked through a spotting scope, I don't like it, dude. I feel like I'm looking through like a tiny little tunnel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to matter whether it's 80 or 65. It's just the spotter is not as user friendly or as pleasant to look through as 15 power binoculars.
Yep. No, I would agree. And I mean, you do, like Ben, he runs what we call the Hubble, which is a 95.
Mm-hmm.
And he glasses up stuff great with that, but he's used to looking through the pinhole. Now, we talk crap about it all the time, but that's the first one we grab once we found that animal. I'm like, hey, give me the Hubble. Just because you got the power. I think it goes up to 70 or 75 power, which is super handy when you're counting inches, especially on a sheep, right?
Yeah.
Now, the higher you go, something to think about, the higher you go with power, you do create heat wave. When there's heat waves, it creates a problem. So a lot of time, there may be a day I glass and I don't come off 25 to 35 power the entire day because anything past that, I'm picking up too many heat waves. I can't see to what I'm looking at it anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are some options for, optics like this. Go ahead.
So one of my questions really to you is Digiscoping. You were showing me some pictures that you got this year, and how many of those were done through Digiscope?
There was quite a few.
How many were from your phone versus your Sony camera, your mirrorless DSLR? Or
I don't
SLR?
I don't take it. Oh wait, you mean when I was on top of the mountain sending?
No.
Those are crisp ones.
Well, what about the mule deer ones you posted in the snow?
That was with actually a 200 millimeter lens. If I had,
those were gorgeous, dude.
well, I can tell you,
You cropped those, didn't you?
I cropped the crap out of them. Yeah, it's the camera. If I would have had the spotting scope with those, you'd be amazed at how good the photos turn out. You know the photos of that big mule deer in velvet?
Mm-hmm.
That was 500 yards away with a digiscoping kit with that TSL APO adapter from Swarovski with an Olympus micro 4/3 camera. So, whatever, a small format. But when you get into digiscoping, one, be prepared to spend some money if you want the best, because you can phone scope and get decent photos. Phone scopes are great. And I mean, I tell everybody to buy a phone scope.
Yeah.
But if you want your picture to be in a magazine, you ain't getting it with a camera or with a phone. So for what I do, I'm not packing that APO adapter too far into the field. But like if I go up to Rocky Mountain National Park or I go to Red Rocks or we're doing Green Mountain and I have my spotter with me,
Yeah.
I'm carrying all that stuff because I can take some pretty sick photos with that APO adapter. I mean, it's unbelievable and John Nicholson, he's a guy that we make fun of him because I don't know that he's killed anything, but he takes some good photos with that APO system is great. And I mean, you can get a lot of guys run a Sony A7R, or excuse me, a Sony RX100, and they just take PVC pipe basically and a point and shoot camera. That thing takes great photos as well. Really depends as far as on Digiscoping what you want to get out of it. For me, I just hold my camera up like a redneck, and when I don't remember my phone scope, and then I send them just to show, hey, here's a big deer that I found.
Depends what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, when I'm down in, go ahead.
I'm kind of, I want like super clear, gorgeous video.
If I would have had that system this year with Phil's sheep hunt, that would have been like the most epic stock in the world that I could have filmed.
Yeah.
The best filming, that Sony A7S 2 camera for low light, it's unbelievable camera for low light filming. It's an expensive camera. I think what's the guy from Montana? He's got a beard.
There's a few guys in Montana with beards.
Yeah, I wouldn't very good description. He's got a TV show, Jason Metzinger.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Matzinger. I think he uses an A7. I know he does because I asked him before I bought mine. I think
Okay.
Wade James, some guys that whatever, you can film in the dark with it, basically.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
How much is that camera? That's a Sony?
I think $2,900 for the A7R2. I think it's $2,300 for or A7S2 is $2,200 or $300 for the.
That's what you photographed that mule deer with?
I photographed the mule deer just with an A7R2 and a 70 to 200 lens and cropped it. Dude, I had 9 deer bodies in every direction around it that I cropped out of that, and they still came out great.
That was a 200 millimeter lens?
Yeah, crazy.
How far away were they?
150 to 400 yards.
Dude, that was crazy good.
Yeah, they were good photos. I mean, for what it was, and that's on. We were just doing cardio or whatever, but it is what you want to get out of it. So, like, the problem I am is I'm so anal with my photos is I'm pretty much locked into carrying too much crap because you can't ever. Someone gets paid. There's no way around it. You can't go in and take a newsworthy cover photo with a camera, or with a phone. You can't do it. You can't take from 400 yards away. You're spending money to take good photos, right? An 800 millimeter Canon lens is $12,000.
Yeah. But what's your go-to then? I mean, if you're going to photograph something at, let's say, 300, 400 yards, what are you going to use, Aaron? What's your ideal? If weight wasn't an issue, what would you use to get the best image?
If weight and money wasn't an issue, I'd use a camera lens. I'd get an 800 millimeter lens. You can't beat that.
Okay, weight is an issue. Get the weight out.
Yeah, that APO adapter, it can't be beat for what it does.
So you'd use the Digiscoping.
Yeah.
You'd use that over the 200 millimeter, cropping it?
At 300, I think the pictures would probably come out better with the
Digiscope?
I think with the Digiscoping adapter. Honestly, though, now it's not fair to ask me that to all the listeners because my camera, most people aren't going to have my camera. My camera, I am able to crop 100%. I mean, to nothing.
But that's my question, Aaron. If I'm going to spend, I can spend $2-3 grand on the camera or $2-3 grand on the Digiscope setup. Like if I have one or the other as an option.
Okay, so this is very simple as far as that goes. If you're a hunter, get the spotting scope because then you're going to be able to hunt with it too and use a little bit. You won't need quite this. You can get a $1,000 camera or an $800 camera body, run it on the Swarovski spotting scope with the APO adapter and have amazing photos, because you don't have to have the technology that my camera body does,
Okay.
which is $200.
So
is what the body is.
okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. So, so then why buy your camera?
Regular photography.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you
for
gotta-
300 yards, you could still use that though and crop it.
well, you saw those photos.
Yeah,
I mean, they're pretty amazing.
very
But
intriguing.
you're the thing. If a guy is trying to do that, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm a hunter. I want to take because I get this question. I don't want to spend over $1,000, but how do I get photos like yours? I'm not a great photographer. It's amazing what $5,000 in camera gear will do for you. It is. I mean, you're going to become a great photographer. You learn to use the buttons. But if you're getting into it and you already have a camera, let's say you have an Olympus, for example, or you have a Sony RX100 or whatever, and you can Digiscope, and you have a spotting scope already, or you're going to buy a spotting scope, you can make any of those camera bodies fit, where it's with an APO adapter or some Velcro and PVC pipe. You can get some pretty good photos.
Yep.
The problem with that is I ran into that, and shortly after that, it wasn't good enough, and I bought something else anyway, because the best photos you're going to get is with my camera body and Digiscoping with it or with a zoom lens. I mean, you're not going to beat. You can't beat. It's expensive for a reason. I mean, those photos I took of that mule deer, I didn't even have a tripod. I handheld that, and it was cloudy, and I cropped them. You can't do that with most cameras. There's no. I mean, people are like, "Hey, what lens were you using?" And I 70 to 200. Oh, did you edit it? And I'm like, "Yeah, I cropped it." How much? 90%. I mean, I cut literally 9 deer bodies left, right. I measured them all the way around that deer, basically. I cropped out. So it went from 100 yards wide to the width of a deer and still had great contrast, great image quality. And I handheld it. It would have been better if I had it on a tripod, but it was like 8 degrees and I couldn't feel my fingers, so I didn't get my tripod out. So you can't cheat the system. And the same goes for optics. I mean, you can't spend $300 on binoculars and expect it to compare to a $1,200 set. You can't spend $300 on a camera and wonder why you don't have photos like Stephen Drake or Tony Bynum or Darren Epp. You just got a lot of money into that stuff. It's just how it is.
All right. Just tell me I got to spend more money there, and that's what I'm hearing.
Pretty much. I mean, to cut to the cheapest system, if you already got a spotting scope, and a Sony RX100 with some PVC pipe takes some great photos.
And your camera is the Sony
A7R2.
A7R2. All right.
Now, I get paid for my photos now. I do the marketing for Kafaru. I mean, I probably have sitting around me right now, not bragging, $30,000 in crap. Okay, this is accumulated over many years, but I mean, it's not like I was taking great photos 5 years ago because I didn't have great equipment. So I was snapping crappy photos like everyone else does because I just wanted to show people I'd seen some deer. What I'm trying to do now is take photos that I can sell, or so it's a completely different scheme.
Yeah, I want to know because I want to take photos and video that I can make films out of, that I can share, that impact people, And I have a Canon 70D and some nice lenses, and it gets me some gorgeous video, but I can't crop the images like you did.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just getting these camera bodies and being able to afford to do all of this stuff. But, I mean, for most guys, that Sony RX100 on a Digiscoping kit is going to work great with with most spotting scopes.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do what you're doing, yeah, you're screwed, man. You're going to have to spend money. There's no way around it. I mean, you can bridge up and, buy a little bit less than expensive one and keep going. But if you're trying to take epic video on a stock, you would use the APO adapter, and then you're stuck with what I'm doing. Dude, I carry 2 camera bodies.
Our problem is distance right now. We have great footage. We can film anything under basically 100 yards and have amazing video.
And you could film at 600 yards a guy on a stock with that APO adapter.
That's what I don't have right now, is the ability to really film something. Even at 200 yards, it's still pretty good video. But,
Well, the other thing, too,
but that's
is
it. It's maxed out at 200 yards, and even then the image is really small. 100, 150 yards is kind of ideal. Anything beyond that, and if I use we've been using just a phone scope for the rest of it with our spotting scope, and that's good. I mean, that's good enough to show the adventure and for people to see what went down. But man, I see what is accomplished with other setups, and wow.
Hold on, make sure that's the right photo. That photo there.
Yeah, turn it sideways, or will it get bigger if you turn it sideways?
I don't know.
No, okay.
Bigger. Right there, that photo, I was 295 yards away, and I was on 125 on my lens.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's with your phone?
No, hell no. No, that was my camera.
Okay.
And then I cropped it. So when I had it on my screen, the deer's here, right? I had the rest of this.
Yeah, you cut out about 80% of the photograph.
80 to 90, yeah.
Yeah. And that image does not look cropped at all. I mean, it just looks so good, Aaron. It looks, and you had good lighting. I mean, it's really good lighting.
Well, that one there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, plus these are compressed, so they're compressed down on my phone. I mean, I was just handhelding with ISO at 400.
That's
priority.
That's incredible, dude.
But see,
even handheld.
Looking at some
distance.
Yeah, and I'm
so really you're not a very good photographer.
I was just going to say I'm just learning what I'm doing. Well, when I bought the one camera, I got a Sony. I got an Olympus, and then I traded the Olympus in. I put in a shower door, a big Euro door as a side job, and I rat holed that money. And then I had, I don't know what I got. I sold something else, and then I bought an Olympus, then I bought a Canon 60D, and I dripped snot in the sensor of that thing and had to warranty it. And when I got it back, it was new, and I traded that in and got a 5D Mark III. And so over time, I was able to bridge it up. And then Kafaru bought me one of these, and then I would do some kind of a side job or sell a photo, and I would just take that money and I would buy a lens. It just took me a while to build it up, and not preaching at all. I don't drink. I don't go out and party. I live in a condo. I drive a Subaru now. Please don't make fun of me. My furniture is kind of old, right? I don't spend money on anything but the outdoors, and so I'm able to afford that. I have guys that give me crap about these, but they have a boat and a mobile home or in a motor home.
Yeah, motorcycles, ATVs, and
I don't have that. I have my feet. So
yeah.
But,
it definitely, everybody has their priorities, and for me, yeah, that's why I'm really interested in this, is because I want camera stuff, more filmmaking.
That photo there, it's 400 or 600 yards away with an Olympus camera body, which is like $800, and that APO adapter.
That looks nice. That's so much better than. Have you done video through it? Does
the
image look about the same?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's good. That's there.
That's nice.
That's a 600 millimeter Tamron lens. It's like $1,100 lens.
You're gonna show me where these bucks are?
Most of them are tame anyway, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, anybody. In fact, this got brought up recently to me because there was a hater that was on Facebook and was like, "Oh, you should tell those people those deer are tame," which I've mentioned many times, but. You know what they call photographers that only photograph animals in the wild on public land? They call them unemployed. Anyone that tells you they're everybody's in a park that's taking photos. I mean, I take mine at Roxborough, Green Mountain, Red Rocks. I'll go up to Wyoming, Rocky Mountain National Park. I'd like to tell you I'm Marty Stauffer, but even he cheated. That's proven. I just they're cool animals. I respect how big the animal is. You don't have a chance to watch them in their natural habitat. So they're tame deer. I mean, you can shoot them. They go to places you could probably shoot them, but I just worry about shooting with a camera. I've gotten some good photos. Some are feeding patterns. I've gotten some good photos scouting for mule deer, but I have to get close enough scouting for mule deer to the potential of blowing the deer out, which is extremely counterproductive to trying to kill it a month later. So I try not to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to take great animal photos,
Go to a park.
Yeah, take tame animal photos. It works much better.
Nice. Well, I guess we can wrap this up. We have done a camera podcast where you went into just the gear you use. We did that like a month ago, Aaron, and I haven't got it posted yet. So
it probably wasn't very good anyway.
No, it was good. It's good info. We need to get into it. It's funny you don't remember what I don't remember.
Squirrel.
So I need to get that one out, and then but we were going to talk some more about camera stuff. I want to do that. Basically, to me, the camera podcast is, for me personally, it's a conversation we're having. If anybody wants to listen in, they can. That's how that podcast goes down. So, Anyway, so your recommendation today, to summarize, is Outdoorsman. You've tried a lot of other tripods. They're an American-made, hunter-supported company, something like that.
Yeah, they're out of Arizona. Cody's the guy that runs the shop. Super cool dude. He's funnier than hell. The micro head, when I called him, I'm like, I was on a sat phone. I'm like, dude, I need that thing at my house quickly. Can you get it over there or whatever? And I'm trying to give him my debit card over the phone. He's like, just pay me when you get back, dude. All right. So when I got back to where I was on a normal cell phone, I called him. But they're hunters. And I mean, and Gitzo makes a great tripod, Slick, really, they're all great. But the system in general from Outdoorsman is unbeatable. Nothing is better.
Worth the investment then? It's sort of cool because when you buy a tripod like that, it's sort of like buying your binoculars or your glass. The odds are, you're not buying it again. You go and buy yourself a bow, you're going to replace that in a few years.
Well, if you've ever used Gitzo's warranty, not good. It's a problem. Where with the Outdoorsmans, you're sending it to a fellow hunter, and they can fix it right there in Arizona. Where Gitzo, the guy, you're going to get. Would you like a squishy? You don't know what the hell they're saying, right? It's difficult.
Got it. Okay. Well, Aaron, thank you. Thank you for your expert advice, and stay gritty. We'll catch you next time.
All right.
All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowman TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.